Good afternoon, folks. I'm going to just wait a few minutes and allow some of our guests to join us. We had a little over 60 people RSVP to attend our event, so I want to make sure that everyone's in the session and then we'll get things started. But thank you all for being here this afternoon with us. Okay, it looks like it's slowing down and I'm going to get started. To kick things off, I'll introduce myself. My name is Anna Marie Tejas. I serve as the Director for Parent and Family Programs at the University of Arizona. I wanted to share that I'm the proud parent of a third-year Wildcat. I have a sophomore in high school and a senior who will be joining us this fall on campus at the U of A. So hopefully they'll be joining your students. I'm really thrilled that you've decided to join us and welcome you to our first spring coffee chat. So just to get things started, I wanted to review how this webinar is going to function. It is a Zoom webinar, so we can't see you, we can't hear you, but you do have the option to hover to the bottom of your screen and click the Q&A button. You'll see that Q&A button pop up, a dialog box will pop up, and you'll have the opportunity to ask us any question that's on your mind related to financial aid or the admissions process. And so one thing I'd like to remind you, because it's a public forum, I would just ask that you try not to type in any personal information in regards to your student, just to protect them and their security. Another reminder is we're going to continue to host these coffee chats throughout the semester with varied topics. So feel free to jump in and learn more about the Wildcat experience. So to go ahead and get things started, I'm pleased to introduce our coffee chat guest and my colleague, Art Young. Art serves as the Executive Director for the Office of Scholarships and Financial Aid and is here to share his resources and his knowledge to help you better understand the scholarship and financial aid process as your student prepares for enrollment. So Art, thanks for being here. I saw that you turned on your screen. And then I think if you unmute yourself, we can go ahead and start this conversation. It'll be a really casual one. I won't throw any hard questions at you. But when our students and families start to navigate that financial aid process or even paying for college, I know that terminology can sometimes be confusing. They hear terms like FAFSA, student loans, parent loans, and scholarships. Can you just help us understand the difference between these four categories?
Yes, I'm happy to. And before I do that, let me just express my appreciation for the invitation to be here today. I'm thrilled to be with all of you. It's a pleasure for me to work in the Office of Scholarships and Financial Aid. I work with a fantastic team, and we are excited to support you and your students. We love to have any opportunity we can get to share the information in our office and to support you however we can. And I'm actually the parent of 3 college students, not to one up you or anything, Anna Marie, but and so I guess I feel your pain. It's expensive and it can be confusing, and we recognize that financial aid, the process can be confusing and frustrating at times. I have worked full-time in financial aid for almost 20 years, and I still get confused sometimes with the government processes and other things. And so we recognize that, and we make extra efforts, particularly on our website and on the information that we send you out electronically, to try to explain the terminology, to try to help you have access to resources that you need in order to understand the process fully. So to highlight quickly those 4 terms that Anna Marie shared, first one is the FAFSA. That stands for the Free Application for Federal Student Aid, and it is the one single application for all types of federal financial aid. So that includes grants, which is the free money that you don't have to pay back. Also includes student loans and parent loans that you do have to pay back with interest. It includes federal work-study program, and we even use the FAFSA on our campus to evaluate eligibility for certain scholarship programs. So we strongly encourage all of our students and their families to submit a FAFSA every single year. Of course, we always want to start with the types of aid that don't need to be repaid. So grants and scholarships are always first on the table. But for most of our students, they need to use several different types of aid in order to afford the cost of college. So federal student loans have very low interest rates. They have good borrower benefits, and they don't require any credit history to qualify for students. The parent loans, on the other hand, are credit-based, but they're available in case you need extra help to find funding and cover educational expenses. And then finally, the University of Arizona uses a platform called Scholarship Universe to help connect our students with scholarship opportunities, both from within the university and also from private sources. And we encourage all of our students to become familiar with this important tool and to apply for scholarships as early as possible and as often as possible to keep their costs down and avoid taking on too much student loan debt.
That was a really great description. And actually, I learned a lot as well listening to you. You had mentioned some of the free aid that doesn't have to be repaid, which leads me to my next question. Some of our students have already received their notification letter. And if that's not enough, what would be another way for them to receive more aid or assistance?
Well, first of all, I just wanted to mention that we recognize the challenges of the pandemic that we face right now. And so we recognize that financial circumstances might change for our students and their families. And many of us have experienced disruptions to income, possibly even unusually high medical expenses or other types of expenses. So if your financial circumstances have significantly changed, we encourage you to contact our office and we'll discuss the situation with you. We'll provide you with options and look at your students' circumstances to see if they might be able to submit an appeal or look at other additional options. There are always options to help cover costs. And so we're committed to helping students and families explore those options and make informed choices.
Great, thank you. I've received several calls and emails, and I know you kind of touched upon this a little bit in your previous answer, but I received an email yesterday that there's been a change in income with their family. And I know there's been a lot going on in our world with this global pandemic. So what would a family do if they need to make an adjustment to any of those forms?
Yeah, they can just reach out directly to our office and we will help them. Again, the most important thing is to look at the individual circumstances of the student and the family. The government does allow us to make some accommodations in terms of evaluating eligibility for federal aid. And we have the ability to look at that, look at the change and see how big of an impact it would make. And certainly want to provide every possible funding resource for our students and families during these difficult times. So there are opportunities to have aid packages reevaluated and to have your eligibility reevaluated as well.
Great, thank you. I know many students have already received their financial aid offer. Can you just walk us through how someone might read it, and is this their actual bill? So those are two questions there.
Yes, well, maybe I'll start with the second one because that's easy. The financial aid offer is not an actual bill. Instead, it contains the type and amounts of aid for which your student qualifies. It also includes estimated costs to help you plan and budget so that you can cover your educational expenses. That can be confusing sometimes because it looks like it's actual charges, but those are just estimates. So students will receive bills every semester with actual charges from the bursar's office directly. So it's important to compare those bills, the actual charges, to the estimates on your financial aid offer and make sure that you have enough aid to cover the balance due. As far as reading the actual financial aid offer, we use an electronic format now, which is really slick, and it's pretty user-friendly. So there are helpful hints embedded in the offer in the electronic form. And it also has videos and links to other resources that are designed to help you and your student understand the financial aid offer and the options that are available. And then you can also access helpful information about how to read the aid offer on our website. If you just click on the resources tab, our website is financialaid.arizona.edu. And there's comprehensive information about all the terminology and the process and the eligibility as well there on our website.
I have a quick question for you. Do
Yeah.
you match offers from other institutions? We know that students are out there applying to different colleges.
Unfortunately, the University of Arizona does not match aid offers from other institutions. However, we definitely recognize what an important factor cost and financial aid are when making a choice about where to attend school. So we're happy to explore additional options with students and their families in order to make a plan that works best for them.
Great, thank you. Now that they've received these offer letters, what should students do next? Is this it? And then they join us in the fall? Or what are the next steps?
Well, I think that we encourage students to regularly check online. There's a to-do list in their student center. And so that within that to-do list, there'll be next steps for them. Anything that needs to be submitted in order to firm up the eligibility for aid. Double check and make sure there aren't any holds that would impact or hold up your financial aid there in the student center. Those are always the best, most up-to-date indicators of where you're at in the process and what additional steps you might need to complete. The goal is, of course, to have everything in place before school begins. And if along the way, if you have any questions, you're always welcome and encouraged to reach out to our office.
I think that was great advice, and you said it. I'm going to reiterate it just because I know you've done this 3 times, Art. I'm just one behind you. So I keep reminding my daughter, have you checked your email? So I'm going to say it again. Your students need to be checking their Arizona email accounts. All the communication is going to be in there. That's where they're going to be hearing from us. Can I ask, I saw a question pop up in the Q&A section. Their daughter's been accepted, they paid the enrollment fee. So where is this financial aid offer coming from?
The financial aid offer comes in a couple of ways. It comes in the email, the student's email. The student actually knew this year, if we have a cell phone number, we'll actually text a link to the financial aid offer. And it's really slick. You can just tap on that link and it'll open up the page directly. You don't have to log in. There's no setup required, and it'll open up that page.
Great, thank you. See, I needed that information as well. So there are so many families that call us, they email us because they're trying to call your office and talk to someone, just connect with someone. I know, and I have it on one of the slides here, so I'm going to fast forward on how they can connect with your office. But sometimes there's barriers. Would you mind going through maybe the FERPA process, and when they do get through, how they could talk to somebody discussing their students' financial aid offer, what that looks like?
Sure, happy to do that. Our office actually deals with 2 federal laws that deal with student privacy and data security. The first one that you alluded to already is FERPA, which stands for Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, was passed in 1974. The other one that our office deals with is the Higher Education Act, which was passed in 1965. And both of those laws limit, well, they really protect students' educational information. So that's a good thing. The kind of challenging part about that is that sometimes it feels like it creates barriers to accessing really free exchange about that information. So we have to be extra careful, not only with the information in students' educational records, but specifically with the information on their FAFSA, which everyone knows includes tax information, sensitive income information. So we try to be very, very careful about that. But we're also really eager to help however we can. And so we try to navigate that as best we can. If you, as a parent or family member, would like to have access to your students' financial aid information, there's a couple of things we would recommend. First of all, they should give you guest access in their Student Center account. And that allows you to easily log in and view all the details about their financial aid. Secondly, they can also submit an authorization for release of information online. And that form will allow you the access to call in to our office and have access to the information. Of course, we take our responsibility to protect sensitive personal information very seriously. So please understand if when you do call in or contact our office, if we have to verify your identity, it's not because we don't trust you, it's just because we want to make sure that we're very good stewards and that we're protecting that information however we can.
Absolutely. I agree with that. So I appreciate you sharing it. I've listed on the screen right now the link to the Office of Scholarships and Financial Aid and how they can contact your office and get a hold of somebody, which made me jump ahead a few slides. I'm going to jump back just a little bit because I know that we have some upcoming dates and deadlines. Can you share what we should be aware of, what we should be looking for, and how do we prepare?
Absolutely. That's a really timely question. The most important upcoming date or deadline is the University of Arizona's priority deadline for FAFSA submission, and that is March 1st every year. And let me just explain a little bit what that priority deadline means. That's the date, number one, when you should have filed your FAFSA in order to have sufficient time for your financial aid to process all the way through and be in place for the upcoming school year. I know we kind of live in a fast, instant gratification kind of an Amazon world right now, but unfortunately the financial aid process sometimes does have bumps and additional requirements in the road. So in order to assure that everything will be in place for the start of fall semester, we encourage you to submit the FAFSA before March 1st. Also, we use that date because some of our institutional aid programs are limited. And so we use that date to prioritize student recipients for institutional and even some of the federal aid programs. And so the earlier is always better for financial aid. A couple other things to kind of look ahead to. Later in this summer, around July, you'll be able to begin accepting student loans. That'll also be the time when you can begin submitting appeals for unusually high expenses that you or your family might have experienced. Next month on March 15th, we'll open up the process for appeals, the appeals that we talked about earlier. If you have some kind of an impact to your family income, and so we can kind of help walk through that process and allow enough time to have everything in place before school begins. So most important thing, again, is that you and your student stay on top of that to-do list and double check Student Center. We want to avoid the last minute rush however we can, and ensure that all of the funding is in place and ready to go before school starts.
Perfect. And I just want to highlight, I know that you mentioned the FAFSA deadline is March 1st. There are some really great webinars and events that your office is hosting, and one of them assists families with completing that. Am I correct to say that?
Yes, absolutely. So let me just provide one minor correction to something you said. Actually, March 1st is not the FAFSA deadline. That's our priority deadline.
Okay.
So the student can submit the FAFSA as long as they're still attending school throughout the school year. But March 1st is the priority deadline. But a student could still submit the FAFSA even after March 1st. Okay. But talking about webinars and workshops, that's a really great thing that our office does to provide additional resources. Again, if you're interested, you can go to our website, click on the resources tab in the upper right-hand corner, and you'll be able to see a lot of helpful information, including workshops that are coming up. We have workshops, everything from submitting the FAFSA to budgeting, to finding additional scholarship opportunities. All of those workshops are there and available, and you can even access past workshops are there recorded. And you can view those and get that helpful information for you and your student.
Thank you, Art. And I apologize. Even I messed it up listening to you.
You're doing great.
So on your screen right now are all of these, which is a lot of information. So it made it easier for you. I know I actually played around with this. I thought it was kind of cool. If you are on a computer and you have a smartphone, you would just open your camera up, your phone, and hover it over the QR code, and immediately the link will open up. And this is the link that you were looking at earlier that has all of the hyperlinks. You can click on it. That's kind of complicated. Another thing you can do is go to our website uafamily.arizona.edu and click on our events tab. And in the February 11th coffee chat, I've listed the hyperlink to all of the resources that were on the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that here on our screen right now, so our families can either use the QR code or they can click on the link later at their convenience.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Art, we've had some awesome questions come in, and I'm going to just highlight some of them because I think it only helps to reiterate your answer and hear from you. Can you explain how QTR works?
Well, I will try. So QTR stands for Qualified Tuition Reduction. And although I'm not the expert in that process, it's actually managed through the registrar's office rather than our office. But I am using it for those college kids that I mentioned earlier. So the employee at one of the state schools, my understanding is you can use it in any of the state schools, but the employee who is wanting to utilize that benefit on behalf of one of their dependents or spouse will submit a request, submit that form by the deadline every semester. And then that comes through and pays a certain percentage of the tuition costs. And depending on if it's a spouse or a dependent, Abby's doing a great job of putting a great helpful link there in the chat so that everybody can get more information from the website. But it's wonderful because it basically reduces next to nothing, a really, really wonderful benefit of being employed by one of the state schools in Arizona, and reduces tuition charges to a very, very manageable amount.
And then can you also explain the work study process? I know we receive questions from families and students wondering, does the job just come to them? What work does the student have to put into that?
Yeah, that is an excellent question. The Federal Work Study Program is actually one that you qualify for through the FAFSA. So that's how you apply. It is a need-based program, but it's different than the other types of federal financial aid that we work with in that it's something that you earn as you go. You don't get a disbursement at the beginning of the year or the beginning of the semester. Rather, you get an allotment that you can earn as a student employee here on campus. And then once you have accepted that offer, then you're able to apply for a job on campus, just like you would normally seeking employment. And then what happens is the government helps to cover those wages as you earn them. So you earn them just like you would a paycheck. It's a great opportunity, and our employers on campus are very flexible. They're very supportive of our student employees. And many times students are able to get resume building experience in their field of choice that really helps augment their educational experience and prepare them for exceptional careers. So it's a really wonderful program and can be one of those pieces that we mentioned earlier to help cover the costs of college in many different ways and cover not only tuition charges, but also living expenses.
Absolutely, I agree with you. So the link that your students would use is through what we call Handshake, and it's through our Career Services Department. And so I'm going to ask, I know I have several colleagues, we have several colleagues out on the back end that are answering questions. If they could put the Handshake link in there, our students, just like you said, I'm going to reiterate it, they would go look through the jobs that are available and apply just like they would normally apply for a job. They do, just like you said, have to go through the interview process. It gives them great experience in resume writing skills and really that experience that they're going to need down the road. And that's how they would apply for that job. Okay, I'm trying to be mindful of our time here. We just have a few more minutes left. Is there anything that you wanted to add, Art, that I may have missed?
I think the only other thing is maybe to highlight the disbursement process. One of the most common questions that we get in our office is, where's my money? For lack of a better question term. So just so everyone understands, even if your financial aid is approved and ready to go, the government doesn't allow us to begin dispersing or posting that money to your student account until 7 to 10 days before classes begin. And so don't panic if it's not there earlier, but once that money does post to your student account, The first thing is it will apply to anything that you owe the university. And if there's leftover, then a refund will be sent to you either in the form of a check or what we call web refund, which is basically direct deposit, which we prefer, obviously, because it's quicker and easier. The other tricky thing about disbursements is that there are some charges on student accounts that the government doesn't allow us to apply federal aid toward unless we have active authorization of that from the student. And so we encourage all of our students to submit what's called the Title IV authorization form. You can always rescind it later. You only have to do it one time for all the time that you're at the university. But what that does is it allows us to apply any financial aid to any charge on your student account. And that avoids the frustration and potential confusion of getting a refund, but still owing some charges due to the university. So that'll make things a little bit easier. And then when it comes time to pay any residual charges, you can do that online through the Quick Pay system in UAccess. And you can use an e-check, you can use a credit or debit card if there are additional charges due. And that's something that happens at the beginning of every semester. So just kind of as we're looking ahead, making sure that we're navigating. It's easy sometimes for families to assume that because they've been approved for financial aid, that it's just going to cover all the charges and they don't need to worry about it. And that's where we do our best to inform and educate our students and families that it's their responsibility to compare the amount of their aid with their charges and make sure that there's enough to cover and that they're also budgeting appropriately and covering their living expenses as well.
Thank you, Art. That is great information. And I don't want to get too complicated in our questions or dig a little too deep, but during the new student orientation, we're offering family essential sessions where you'll get to hear from other departments like the bursar's office. And our bursar goes into great detail explaining what that looks like when aid is dispersed and how the buckets are, what's paid first, and then another option is paid, so on and so forth. So I encourage our families to attend those sessions. They're recorded, they're on our website where you can learn more about that process. But I appreciate you bringing it up because it gives our families something to start thinking about. Art, I feel like this conversation went so quickly, but it was great information. I'm going to go ahead and add just a few more things. So on your screen, you'll see the Office of Scholarships and Financial Aid. The link that you're looking at is the contact link. I know somebody was asking for the phone number, but there's various ways that you can contact your office. It just doesn't have to be through a telephone, correct?
Yes, of course. Yeah, in fact, we have more ways, thanks to the pandemic. There are some good things that have come out of this. We have expanded our virtual access in ways that we never have before, including drop-in appointments, virtual Zoom appointments. Our chat hours have been expanded, and you can always, if you're old-fashioned like me, you can always pick up the phone or send us an email, and we're happy to support and answer questions however we can.
Great, that's perfect. On the bottom of the screen is my contact information, my email address, our office phone number, and the link to our website, uafamily.arizona.edu. I've been watching the Q&A and all the questions that are popping up, which have been great. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at it, Art, but we're getting questions about move-in, upcoming dates and events. So one of the questions that I keep seeing is family weekend. That is normally held in our fall semester, and because of the pandemic, I don't have a date. I'm not sure when and if it's going to be hosted. So we will continue to notify you. One of the things that I encourage all of our parents and family members that are listening is to go to our website, uafamily.arizona.edu, and in the top right-hand corner, just click that join button. You can sign up to receive regular communication from our office. As soon as I get dates on family weekend and any other events that we're hosting via live, virtual, hybrid, I will announce them to you through email. They will be also announced on our website through the events tab. So with that, Art, it has been a pleasure chatting with you, getting to know you a little more and what your office does to serve our families and our students. I'm gonna keep this conversation going on our Q&A function to make sure all of our families are answered. but let you get back to your busy schedule and just once again express my gratitude for you being here this afternoon.
Thanks again for the invitation.
Thank you. Okay, so what we'll do is I'm going to turn off my screen, Art will turn off his, and we'll see if any more questions pop up. And I thank all of our guests who have joined us here today and all of my colleagues who've been working on the other side answering the questions for all of you this afternoon. I'll leave our contact information up as well. Have a great afternoon.